in this episode of Doc's Boost, I have to go back and add some information and correct some wrong information that I gave you when I did the 3.6 liter Kenne Bell install video. I gotta fix 4 things that I talked about. One of them is a mistake that I gotta correct, and the other 3 I didn't even talk about. So let's get started with the first one right now. The first one deals with the position of the bypass valve. The bypass valve is mounted, instead of vertically, it's mounted horizontally. This is the correct way to do it. Don't do it the way I did it in the video. Do it this way. This is the correct way. Now the second thing that you need to do once you've got the bypass valve installed correctly deals with these 2 things that come with the kit. All it is a connector, a butt connector if you will, for the vacuum hose, and a plug. Where does that go? Well, that goes on the hose right here. I'm handling it right now, and this is the hose, the original hose setup for the bypass valve. The large plug, just like it did on your old supercharger, plugs right into the supercharger itself. All right. The other couple of hoses have to take this nipple off and turn it around 180 degrees. It has to face this way to install it properly in this application, so the EGR valve gets activated correctly. The third long hose that would normally plug into the bypass valve, that's where this goes. You plug this into that hose and cap it off with this, just like this. So let's install that hose and I'll show you exactly what it's supposed to look like. Plug it in here, plug it in here. Snap your electrical connection into your EGR valve. Click, you heard the click. And this one gets hidden down here out of sight as best you can. Just hide it out of sight. And I tucked it down here by my fuel rail so it doesn't bother anybody. And nobody sees it. Well, the third thing you got to do, once you get that done, you need to understand is that bypass valve is a low vacuum bypass valve, and it's engineered for cammed engines, low vacuum at idle speed. Now that doesn't mean that you're not going to have this same low vacuum bypass valve in your kit, even if you're not cammed. It'll still work appropriately. If you draw an imaginary line through your supercharger, everything above that imaginary line is going to be all the manifold vacuum. It's never pressure. That's the point I want to make. The only place where you get low vacuum and then pressure for boost is that port right down there. And as that comes around from the front of the supercharger, you need to cut it off and tee in the hose that goes to the bypass valve. So at low vacuum, it will close, or it will open the bypass valve. At boost, when you put your foot in it, it's going to create pressure. It's going to go from vacuum to pressure and push that valve closed. That's the only way that valve will close. It's not spring loaded. It doesn't automatically go closed if you let it go. So it has to have pressure in order to close. So if you don't hook it up correctly, like this, keyed into that port, you'll never close that bypass valve and you'll never get full boost. And the other key goes over to fuel regulator. Same scenario, a little bit of vacuum, but when you want boost, you've got to put pressure on that regulator to increase the flow of fuel. So you're going to tee that line twice. Make sure you do that. And the fourth thing you got to deal with is the check valve. And this check valve comes in the kit. It's really important for idle to work correctly. Here's that check valve. This check valve now has to go into this line coming from the side of the supercharger right here over to this port right here on the cold air intake. You need to cut that hose right here and install the check valve with the white facing in this direction to that port right there. And then the other side goes obviously towards the air intake. Boom, voila. So that's it. You've got it taken care of. So now it's just time to go out and have some fun, right? So let's check out that burnout video, and I'll see you in that burnout video in just a moment. And thanks for watching.